Hivemind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Don't you find that interesting? It's been 2 years of this nonsense, garbage, sham, hyper-partisan January 6th committee, and during these last 2 years we have learned nothing. Nothing new, just a bunch of bogus, Democrat fake news being promoted by the media from Cassidy Hutchinson and the rest. Of course, we all know the details, we've covered it so many times. The point is, it's been 2 years of nothing. No big new bombshell, no new information, just the same gaslighting narrative being repeated time after time. Insurrection. But isn't it funny that as we get close to hitting the 2-year mark, all of a sudden, as the January 6th committee is coming to an end, well, now we're finally finding all kinds of new information, massive, scathing bombshells that are seemingly changing the whole narrative and confirming what we knew all along. But there's a lot more to this than Nancy Pelosi, Liz Cheney, and the rest of them want you to believe. It seems as though all it really took to get to the bottom, to get to the truth, was the end of the January 6th committee and the end of Nancy Pelosi's stranglehold on the House of Representatives and, of course, by virtue of the House investigation. Of course, through the ushering in of this new conservative majority. Folks, another massive, huge revelation as House Republicans find text message and email evidence proving what we knew all along. When it comes to January 6th, all roads lead directly to Nancy Pelosi's office. We got a bombshell to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so the information continues to pile up. I made these 2 videos already, both videos including document evidence and a detailed report directly proving what the media calls January 6th conspiracy theories as correct. Of course, the stuff of nightmares when it comes to Nancy Pelosi's narrative. She certainly doesn't want you to know that this stuff exists. Well, it continues to get worse for little old Nancy. Huge. House Republicans find text and email evidence that Pelosi staffers secretly decreased security at the U.S. Capitol for January 6th, while at the same time, Pelosi was organizing a film crew that day. Rogan O'Handley posted a text message from Nancy Pelosi's staff secretly editing the January 6th security plan for the U.S. Capitol, and then telling the House Sergeant-at-Arms to please act surprised when the final draft was published. The House Sergeant-at-Arms responded, "I'm startled," to the request, showing his willingness to play along. This is more evidence that the January 6th disruptions were planned in advance. Take a look at this. Rogan O'Handley writes, "Nothing to see here. Just a text message from Pelosi's staff secretly editing the January 6th security plan and telling the House Sergeant-at-Arms to please act surprised when the final draft was published." Translation, Pelosi's staff was directly weakening J6 security and didn't want anyone to know. Take a look at this bombshell text message evidence. Here's a text message between HSAA and the Speaker's staff. January 4th, 2021. "Thanks. Davis also wants a briefing. Can we do joint or do you prefer separate? Either way obviously works. We're making Terry's edits to the Electoral College DC, and if you don't mind, I'll send it to you and Jen as a heads up, so please act surprised." Sergeant-at-Arms then responds, "I'm startled," sarcastically. The whole thing was a gaslighting psyop project. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer on multiple occasions have explicitly denied making a change to the Capitol security plans ahead of January 6th, but it seems as though that's exactly what they did. And now we have the House Sergeant-at-Arms apparently texting a Pelosi staffer going with the plan, with a sarcastic, "Oh, I am so startled at this sudden change of plans." It seems as though they were all in on it, and it seems as though Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have lied on multiple occasions when questioned on this issue. I may not be the smartest person on the planet, but I'm definitely no dummy, and I could see a con when it's obvious and playing right in front of me. We all remember Pelosi on January 6th to her stage camera crew, "I hope Trump comes and I'm going to punch him out and I'm going to go to jail and I'm going to be happy." We're all going to pretend like it's totally normal that Nancy Pelosi was filming a friggin' documentary the day of January 6th, trying to create almost like an action thriller, the Capitol being sieged by a bunch of MAGA zombies, like the friggin' Walking Dead. Nancy Pelosi trying to paint herself like the friggin' Rick Grimes of the day. It's utterly ridiculous. Again, I'm not the smartest guy, but I ain't no dummy. And that, Nancy Pelosi's camera crew on the day of, isn't a coincidence. Capitol police officers opening barricades, no coincidence. opening doors, allowing people through. No coincidence. Even to the extent of Capitol police officers in charge of the whole security apparatus remotely unlocking magnetic doors, openly allowing protesters into the building. None of it adds up, and especially what doesn't add up is the Democrat narrative about this whole thing. There's something else here at play, and we have more direct evidence suggesting that it was a psyop and that Nancy Pelosi's office was directly involved, colluding with the House Sergeant at Arms. The evidence is seriously starting to mount up. Not only did Nancy Pelosi and the House Sergeant at Arms deny Donald Trump's request for extra National Guard troops, but it seems as though these text messages are suggesting that it was a whole lot more orchestrated and planned than that. It goes beyond just that one simple decision. The GOP is doing a stellar report here. House Republicans have gathered a trove of text messages and emails showing House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office was directly involved in the creation and editing of the Capitol security plan that failed during the January 6, 2021 riot, and that security officials declared that they had been denied again and again the resources that they needed to protect the nation's most important homes of democracy. The internal communications were made public on Wednesday in a report compiled by Republican Representatives Rodney Davis, Jim Banks, Troy Nehls, Jim Jordan, and Kelly Armstrong that encompass the results of months of investigations that they did of evidence that has been ignored by the Democrat-led January 6 committee. The lawmakers were authorized by House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy to do their own probe. The report concludes that the Capitol was left vulnerable on January 6th as a result of failures by Democratic leadership in the House and law enforcement leaders in the Capitol Police who allowed concerns about the optics of having armed officers and National Guardsmen visible to the public to override the need for enhanced security. I'm sure that's the official narrative, but what it really seems like is that Democrats in charge of security purposely left the Capitol vulnerable. And then we saw little plants like Ray Epps, who's now on the record claiming that he, quote, orchestrated it. And not only is he on the record, I mean, he's on friggin' video essentially orchestrating the whole thing. But they had plants like Ray Epps to rile up the crowd, to target that mob mentality phenomenon, to create a ruckus on the day while Nancy Pelosi got all of her video footage for her friggin' documentary action film. The whole thing's a damn joke. The Democrat narrative is swiftly falling apart. The January 6th investigation tried so hard to conclude that Donald Trump was at the core of all of it. It was an organized plot to overthrow the government. Donald Trump went rogue like Rambo, assaulting Capitol police officers, attempting to lead the charge on the Capitol. That's the official Democrat narrative, but it seems as though the real narrative is that this was a Nancy Pelosi-led psyop. It wasn't a coup or an insurrection. It was Capitol security sabotage, a security failure of epic proportions on the day. And either way, whether we can prove that it was intentional or not, the story still is and still should revolve around failures to secure the Capitol. The narrative is bust. It's been bust. The FBI freaking busted it a long time ago, and it seems as though, as usual, it's backfiring. This stuff needs to be made public. Republicans need to go hard, launch a primetime committee just like the Democrats did, and expose the American public to the truth. Honestly, I doubt they will. I doubt they'll make a big spectacle, but at least there's a little guy like me on this small platform who can try. The whole thing was part of Nancy Pelosi's evil master plan. That's the conclusion. That's also what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel if you guys are up for it. I'm gonna get out of here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.